You're listening to Where You Live with Gene Sullivan.
Welcome back to Where You Live, and so glad to have you with us, joining us for this hour. Today we're talking about a situation with a condominium association where there is a cigar smoker who wants to enjoy his cigar in the privacy of his own home, but the odor is objectionable to another couple living there. The association board's trying to work hard and diligently by having not one but 8 different engineers take a look at the issue to see if they can get to a resolution. They finally did, but the couple didn't think that apparently that the association was diligent enough. And so they ended up starting a lawsuit. And I said, unfortunately, I did not agree with the judge's ruling in this case, where he said, I'm going to award this couple $100,000, even though the situation was finally resolved with the 8th engineer at about the same time, right before the this case went to court. And the judge said that the reason he was going to order the association having to pay $100,000 to this couple, he said, was because the condominium corporation had not been compliant with its obligations under the Condominium Act in their state. And I was saying I thought that the association was being very proactive and very diligent in trying to figure things out. And there were competing interests here. The board of directors certainly were concerned about this couple, but they were also concerned about the right of the person who smokes. And when you have competing rights, there isn't one set of rights that trumps someone else's. The board's trying to work something out for everybody. They finally did, but there was this $100,000 fine. And one of the things that in this whole issue of smoking that I guess I'd like to bring up here now before we wrap it up here, and that is you need to stop and think, if you have concerns about that, and I know a number of people do, and this is an issue that's probably growing in a number of homeowner associations, you need to ask yourself, what is it that you're really looking to correct here? What is it that you're really concerned with? Because anytime you have competing parties and competing interests, sometimes you need to realize that not everybody may want the same things. In the same situation here. There may be other things that can be done and worked around in this situation. I know of one association, for example, that had some people that were smoking, and in this particular case, this homeowners association, what they did is they created a smokers lounge that included even built-in humidor for people that smoked cigars and had a air exchanger. And I remember when I, a couple years ago, went to do a bid for management for this association a few years ago, I thought to myself, you know, as a cigar smoker myself, this is a place I could learn to really like to live. And they worked something out. I know there are other associations that took the time to talk to everybody, and through a supermajority vote of all homeowners, they changed their governing documents to say no smoking is allowed. And that was another answer. They felt that that was the way to do it. And they went through that process so that in that particular case, the association allowed the couple people that did smoke, they were grandfathered in. Everybody else knew that from here on out, you could not smoke. And so if you wanted to buy in this association, you knew going into it before you bought that smoking was not going to be allowed. And I thought that that was a way to deal with it as well. But when you're dealing with this issue, a lot of things that people need to be concerned with basically are health and safety, of course. And if I can use another analogy real quickly, there's one that comes to mind that's another big issue for people, and that's mold. But, just as in the air quality when someone smokes, mold also is something you have to be careful of, because in the case of mold, for example, there's good mold and bad mold. You enjoy good mold because that's used to ferment and create the cheeses that you enjoy and eat. And so just because something becomes moldy doesn't mean that it's bad at all. There's good mold outside in the fall. That's when you have decay and decomposing leaves, and because of that, it regenerates the ground and helps things to grow again. So when someone comes in to test for mold, they don't say, well, any mold, we're going to have zero tolerance here, and so no mold is going to be allowed. No, they say, you know what, we're going to do a base test. We're going to try and figure out what's happening here, because if there's some mold in the baseline, in other places outside of the building, and that's where people live and walk around, then they should be able to expect that same baseline in the place where they live. And so people that do environmental testing will do that to see whether or not levels are above what is normal. And I think the same thing can be done as well in the areas of smoking. There are different companies to turn to, people that do what's called X-ray diffraction or scanning electron microscopy. And those are people that take a look at testing the particulate matter that's in the air, and they'll do the same thing in creating a baseline. I just think that there's more that probably could be done in trying to be thoughtful instead of just allowing emotions to get the best of people. And in this particular case, I think that is what I want to take away from this story today, that anytime you have, whatever the issue is, competing interests, we need to have a good reminder of the importance of encouraging the better angels of our nature to resolve the issue, and to realize that it's going to take sometimes all stakeholders to get involved to try and come up with a solution. Well, let's turn our attention to another matter. A lot of you from time to time either call or write me after a show, and they say, Gene, I've got some questions, and I've got two questions that are from our listeners that we're going to address today. And one of the best guys that I know who can always answer any of these questions is a friend of the show, attorney Dan Greenstein with Bernick Lifson. Hello, Dan.
Hi, Gene. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for taking some time to be on the show today. We've got some people who've had some questions that they wanted to ask, and this first one I thought was kind of interesting. The person said, if you're my HOA's attorney, you represent me, right?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. I think it depends on what the writer or the person submitting the question means, because when you represent an HOA, you represent the entity itself, and the HOA entity acts through the board of directors. Let's say we have a 200-unit condominium, and they need some legal advice. Well, the board of directors hires the attorney. The board of directors gets the legal opinion from the attorney, and the board of directors decides the strategy and decisions that are implemented by the attorney. Now, some of the 200 members of that association probably won't agree with it, because rarely does everyone agree with a decision. But the attorney is representing the homeowners association as an entity. So the attorney can't represent each individual. However, the individuals are members of the association, and the attorney is representing the association.
I think what seems to be implied in something like this, and I don't know because we don't have it further defined from the listener, but I think they're thinking, the association hires the attorney's working for the association or for everybody, so they're thinking in their mind that includes me. And now the association is having this attorney talk to me about an issue. They're thinking that seems like that's a conflict of interest. If this attorney's working for me, how can he go after me?
That could very well be the case. It's the kind of situation where if the HOA wants to go after that person, that person should be encouraged to get their own attorney. And in fact, let's say I'm representing an HOA and I send a collection letter to one of the members. One of the first things I state in my collection letter is I represent the entity that is the HOA. I'm not representing the individual members, even though they, are a part of the HOA. Yeah. There's a legal distinction there because the entity of the HOA is a separate person under the law, a separate entity that can make separate decisions from the individual members.
It seems like what is maybe missing here is the person's understanding that there is a hierarchy of authority and order that everybody agreed to when they signed and bought into the homeowners association where they live. And I'd like to have you address it, but we've got to take a quick break right now, Dan, but you can stay with us. And folks, we're talking to Dan Greenstein from Bernick Lifson. We're going to ask him further about this question. If my HOA's, if you are my HOA's attorney, you represent me as well, don't you? We'll talk about this more with Dan after these messages.